Anyone who spent some time in the Minecraft account community, even just a few days, would be able to see that something in that community has taken the world by storm and evolved far beyond what anyone could have predicted when the community was just getting started a few years ago. What is it, you may ask? Well, let me tell you. Short usernames have become some of the most valuable and popular Minecraft accounts to date, from viral YouTube videos about the infamous 1 and 2 character accounts to the many thriving communities like 3Name centered around 3 character Minecraft accounts, to even normal OG accounts becoming more valuable just based on the amount of letters in their username. But what if that attention was shifted to the complete opposite end of the spectrum? What about long usernames? Usernames that are so long, in fact, that they break the Minecraft login. They block you from Minecraft servers across the world, and they are so incredibly rare that even the 1 character Minecraft accounts are more common. In this episode of Minecraft Uncovered, we dive deep into the history of Minecraft usernames, present and past, that are too long for their own good. Before we get into the history of these accounts, there's a few things that should probably be mentioned. First off, these accounts are very rarely ever just 17 characters or longer. In fact, for all but one of them, they have illegal characters in the name as well. Yeah, technically speaking, 17 letter accounts are rarer than 17 character illegal accounts, despite how it sounds. I also want to say that inevitably some of this info will be missing, mostly dates that accounts were found or went public. I've been in the community for about 2 years now, and I started paying attention to special accounts near the start of 2019. But the community is well over 5 years old at this point, so there's a lot of stuff I wasn't around for. I've been able to get evidence for some of these older finds, but others might have to remain a mystery, at least in part. Regardless, I'll be telling you everything I can say. Next, I have a public list of these special accounts on a website called MCBYT. The list has grown a lot since I first made it back in February of 2019, and the hundreds of people who've helped me build it have gotten it to be not just the most accurate and detailed list out there, at least publicly, but it's also become really popular, and in fact, as I'm saying this, it's the most replied and 5th most viewed post on the entire site, with the other 4 being posts by the owner. So whenever I refer to the list or my list at some point in the video, because I will be saying a lot about it, just know that I mean this list of special accounts. For anyone who wants to view the list, I'll leave a link at the top of the description. And lastly, instead of saying 17 plus character account 70 times in this video, I'll just be calling them long names, for simplicity's sake. Without further ado, let's begin with what might be the world record holder for most boring special account: Crazy Biting Turtle. At first glance, it doesn't even seem special and far from crazy like the name suggests, just like a long ugly username, but count up the letters and you'll see that the name is in fact 17 characters long, just 1 over the limit that Minecraft has had in place for a decade. Although I can't find anything on when this account was first discovered, I can find records of what seems to be the original owner from all the way back in July of 2014 on a Flash game website. Since the account is migrated, and this is the only 17 plus character account that's migrated by the way, we can see that the Minecraft account itself was created on September 15th of 2011 when a very interesting bug happened within the Mojang API. It's something we're still researching, and I might make a video about it in the future, so I won't go into too much detail, but basically, username restrictions disappeared for a short period of time, and anyone that made their account during that time could make usernames that were too long, too short, or had invalid characters. For the next few weeks, the Mojang site would ask you to change your special username if you had one, but if you just ignored the notice, nothing would happen. It seems like Crazy never ended up changing his name, and over 7 years later, the account has made a return. The account is actually owned by somebody in this community, though I don't exactly know who right now, and it seems like it entered the community at some point before May 3rd of 2019, just a few days before I caught wind of it. Unlike a lot of invalid accounts though, this one actually stayed private for quite a while, with the first somewhat public mention of it coming in a message to me on December 18th of 2019, along with the mention of another invalid I hadn't known before that point, .. This is about 17 character accounts though, so we won't go into that one. We kept it private for a bit longer, but it started to get more and more well known after that, and it was added to the invalid list in early January this year. Since then, Turtle has survived 2 invalid name purges and is still around and active today. You probably won't be seeing it anytime soon though, since it can't join any servers. That's really about it for the known history of Crazy Biting Turtle though, so let's move on to the next name on the list. So this account is very unique, and not just because it's 17 characters long, but because it's the only known instance in Minecraft of an account that has been and still is invalid on 2 separate occasions. You see, what I said earlier about there only being one 17 character, or in this case 19 character account, that's just normal letters, numbers, and underscores isn't 100% true. There is one other username that meets these requirements, but it hasn't always been this way. In fact, until just a few months back, that name was even longer and even more invalid. Of course, I'm talking about Ivan Durk, or according to the internet, Ivan Durk, one of the more recent invalid account finds. We'll return to the second time it was invalid later, but first let's look at the early history of it. Like I said earlier, Crazy Biting Turtle is the only known long username that's been migrated, so we aren't going to be able to find the original creation date of this account or any of the other long names. There used to be a way to estimate creation dates for unmigrated accounts, so Ivan is assumed to have been made at some point in 2011 like the majority of other invalid accounts. The earliest mention of it that I can find is on December 11th, again in private messages from a friend of mine. It eventually started to get more and more popular, and on January 7th it got added to the list. The username was a little bit different at the time though. In fact, when it went public, it was the longest Minecraft name and the second longest of all time. That's because the name used to have spaces between each word, but if you visit the name MC, there's no previous name with a space, so what happened to the original name? Well, this takes us into the most recent invalid purge. We've had quite a few waves of locked, deleted, or name changed accounts recently, but this one has got to take the cake for the most devastating, at least in my opinion. For those that remember my earlier video on making illegal accounts, on April 21st, my friends a method to inject 2 invalid characters into usernames. Specifically, the I letters from the Turkish alphabet, and over the next few days we found 2 more, the Kelvin sign and the Latin lowercase long s, which doesn't look anything like an S, so I'm not sure how the name relates at all, but whatever. It was fun to work through how the exploit works and why it happened, but alas, nothing good can last, and the method ended up getting discovered and leaked by other people on May 2nd. Back when I made my video, there was a theory going around that all these names would be deleted, and potentially even normal invalid accounts, and I actually mentioned it at the end of that video. Sure enough, come May 4th, names started to disappear. It started at 1:30 PM EST, when my friend's account KJK, with Kelvin signs of course, was changed back to normal characters. By 2:10, they purged all the Unicode invalids, even the ones made before the leak and unexpected HIT that had been created months and months earlier. Then, at 3, the real damage happened. Every single space account started to get name changed, one by one, followed by the $ and awesomeness exclamation mark accounts, the only exclamation mark account that was still around. And yes, Ivan was caught with all the other spaces. The invalid names were completely axed from the system. And since NameMC doesn't show removed name history, it took us a few hours to find the new usernames of the previous invalids. My friend Romantic ended up finding it at around 7 PM along with a lot of the other invalids. Unlike most of the other names though, Mojang were able to remove the spaces from Ivan's name without having to add any extra numbers, most likely on account of the fact that they changed Ivan Durk, a 22 character with spaces, to a 19 character long name without them. It was still invalid. To this day, Mojang either hasn't realized their mistake or they've chosen not to fix it. But hey, the more invalids we have around, the better. Ivan isn't active or owned by anyone in the community, so its legacy is most likely over unless Mojang changes the name again. Regardless, it had a great run, and it's still by far one of the most unique accounts in Minecraft history. So, Ivan, having been 22 characters, was one of the longest accounts of all time, but it wasn't alone. In fact, there have been not 1 but 2 other 22 character names. One was changed a long time ago, and we'll get into that one later, but one of them is still around. That name is elliot.c.l@live.co.uk. It's an email address, obviously, but registered as the username of a Minecraft account. And whenever Elliot is brought up, nobody can forget his 2 best friends, patricks8@gmail.com and ng18@hotmail.com. Elliot was the first of these to be found, and from what I can tell, it was discovered on October 22nd of 2019, just a few days before it was obtained by a member in the community and went public on October 26th when I added it to the invalid name list. Now, Elliot wasn't as public as most of the other names. In fact, at this point, almost every name in my list had been copied from older outdated lists, and it was right around the time that I started to research more into the recent discoveries. So, when this new, unique account was added to the list, it piqued the interest of a few members of the community. Can you guess who they are? Of course, none other than This was actually how I first met them both, and nearly a year later, they're still around making waves in the community, and they've helped the list out so much that they're basically honorary owners, even more so than myself. Anyways, Elliot was very interesting, and though Tanpug clearly had a lot of knowledge that I did not, bringing a brand new previous invalid and mentioning that there were at least 15 invalid names that weren't even on NameMC because they were so private, as well as 2 email usernames, one of which he might be able to find. Sure enough, 50 minutes later, he discovered not just the one, but both other email usernames. The first being Patrick's8, and the second being NG18. But how? I mean, with a name as complicated as these emails had, you can't just guess it like with some simpler names like .flow, Cool Dude, or Help Me. Well, he'd used a very simple but very helpful feature on NameMC that I'd never known about. Outside of the account community, it doesn't seem to be very well known, but there's a special wildcard search on NameMC that allows you to search for any name longer than 3 characters with a certain string in it. This method of searching NameMC can be incredibly useful, and it's been used in other cases to find invalids like Will Wall, or accounts owned by hackers that change the names. So, to find an email invalid, for example, all you have to do is type the email service name with asterisks on both sides. The left side to cover the actual name of the email, and the right side to cover the TLD or ending of the website, like .com, .org, .net, and so on. Feel free to go use it on one of the names. I'll leave a link in the description so you can try it out. To this day, these are still the only known email invalids, and despite being invalid in 3 different ways, @, dots, and length, they've managed to survive every single name purge to date. And finally, we can move on to the last of the long name invalids, to the only other actual 17 character besides Crazy Biting Turtle, which is Michael Salvagio. Though we again don't know when this one was discovered, it went public on December 10th of 2019, when a user known as Silencio posted it along with 3 other invalids. Silent helped us with the list for the next half a year or so, and he was the one that found the Will Wall account I mentioned earlier, for example. Me discussed the new finds for a few hours, but we ended up hiding the names from our posts and making them private, and at this point I honestly don't even remember the other names we talked about except for Alex Clayton. We made the other names public again just a few days later, but it was a very long time before Michael made a return, because I had asked the owner whether it was alright with him to make the name public, and he didn't see the message. For 2 months. Silent actually found out about the account when that owner was talking about it publicly, and he could easily use the wildcard search I mentioned earlier to find it on NameMC as well. So that's it for all the current long name invalids, but what about the past? Well, even with just 3 usernames, the past is arguably even crazier than the present invalids. We'll start with the most normal of the 3 and save the best for last. So, first up is Frosty Barnacle. Now, this name by itself is just 14 characters. Long, but definitely not invalid. That is, until you look at the API and see that Frosty Barnacle actually has 3 spaces in the name, 1 before and 2 after. It doesn't show up on NameMC or sites like it, but in the Mojang API and in-game, there would actually be an empty space on the sides of your name tag and chat. This account was discovered and added to the list by along with a lot of other previous invalid usernames after he talked with the owner of MC Skin History, which is basically the best NameMC alternative out there at the moment. There isn't too much other history for this account though. No name changes or anything, and it's not active or in the community. So, now we move on to the next invalid. Remember how I said that there were 3 total 22 character names? We already talked about the 2 current ones, Ivan and Elliot, but this is that 3rd past name. Reed Thompson #Beast Mode. This account was originally discovered by a friend of mine known as Jupiter, or he goes by a lot of names, okay? Anyways, this name was discovered in possibly the most unorthodox way I have ever seen. He didn't search through any databases or use wildcard or anything like that. Instead, he used a previous invalid, OneCream #smileyface, and scrolled back to when that name was changed on NameMC. Then, instead of posting it as a new find on a well-known forum or something like that, he posted it in the Discord for a Minecraft name sniper. He said he didn't think it was a new discovery, and people said it had been talked about before, but from what I can tell, it was actually brand new to the public. I mean, seriously, I've searched through like 15 Discord servers, tons of market websites, all throughout Google, and this is the first mention of Reed Thompson I've been able to find anywhere. The name was actually changed twice back when all these invalid names were purged, and it just had the hashtag removed, so it was still 21 characters long, kinda like what happened with Ivan, but they fixed the name the next day. Saw the message on Discord and posted it on my thread, and the rest is history. And now we go to the last of these names. To just say this name was 17 plus characters is a bit underwhelming, and I don't exactly feel that's giving you a full idea of just how long this name is. So instead, how about we call it an 100 plus character account? Of course, I'm talking about the infamous Timmy, with 45 spaces before the name and 62 spaces after, for a total of 107 spaces and 112 characters, making it, technically speaking, the most invalid username to have ever existed. Not much is known about this account. It was discovered a long time ago, and the first record that I can find of it is May 25th of 2019, when it was added to a list of special names. That list was actually owned by Romantic, who I mentioned earlier. I know that that's nowhere near the date of the original finding, but it's honestly the best that I can do. Timmy is usually just grouped in with the other 50 plus of these accounts with spaces before or after their name, since they were all made around the same time, and many were purged together as well. It ended up getting added to my list a few months late because at the time I was a bit of an idiot and didn't realize it was actually an invalid, much less the king of invalids, but that's exactly what it was. So eventually it did end up on the list, and it's still there today, albeit not as powerful since that name was changed to Timmy2 back in February of 2015, where it sat in silence for the past 5.5 years. And that's about it for the complete history of 17 plus character invalid names, or at least as complete as I think we're gonna get. Maybe in the future there will be another glitch in the system that allows players to make 17 character names, or maybe Mojang will even change the username requirements to allow it. But for now, these are some of the most rare and exclusive accounts in the history of the game. This has been a highly requested video, so I thought I might as well make one on it before someone else takes the idea. And again, I know I've said these for the last 2 videos and I'm gonna say it pretty much forever, but come check out the community Discord. We're about 60 members right now, we got plenty of memes, music, and more to keep you entertained. You can also suggest video ideas that you want to see and join in the discussion about special accounts like these, because me and my friends talk about them quite a bit in there. Anyways, that's it, so I hope you all enjoyed the video. Till next week, have yourselves a good one. Peace.